my name's Alexis. I did the postbac program from 2018 to 2019, and I currently accepted deferred enrollment to UCI School of Medicine starting fall of 2020. So I wanted to do this video and share a little bit about my experience taking the MCAT. It can be a very trying and mentally exhausting experience, and if you're not in it, you can feel very apprehensive and it can seem very daunting. And if you're in the thick of it, you can kind of just feel lost and need a sense of direction. So hopefully this video can provide you with a little bit of confidence that, I did it within 60 days. And so it's definitely possible. And as long as you have that dedication and drive, you will get there. I got a lot of insight from very knowledgeable people within the admissions process. And for UCI specifically, I know that the expectations are changing, but if you look at their first year profile on their website, that can give you a little bit of insight on what the average MCAT scores are, what the average GPA scores are, and just in general, if you have a really low GPA score, you can balance it out with a really strong MCAT score. And on the other hand, if you have a really good GPA score, don't kind of give away that chance to showcase yourself on the MCAT as well, because that's just going to make you a stronger applicant. For the exam itself, so there's 4 sections. There's the Chem Phys section, the Biochem section, CARS, which is a critical reasoning section, and Psych and Soc. So for UCI specifically, they want to see a really, really strong score in Chem Phys and Biochem. The second priority level would be CARS, and the third Psych Soc. And that's because it's really important to be competent in the hard sciences, right, in the medical profession. But it's also really important to be able to do fast analysis, fast reading comprehension. If your CARS score is faulting, if you really focus on improving that score, that's going to help in every section. Because I think what a lot of people don't realize is that, yes, the MCAT is testing your content, but it's not only testing your content. And a lot of questions, if you're able to reason through it and use your analysis skills, you can use little bits of information to help you answer the question. For me personally, I found when I wasn't sure about something and I thought that this was just the answer just based on my own knowledge, if I read through the passage, I can find information that will make me sure and confident in the answer. So your composite score, yes, it is important, but it's not as important as how those scores are distributed. An applicant may look better if they have a 127 in each section versus another who has a 129 in Chem Phys and a 128 in Biochem, but yet have a 122 in CARS and Psych Soc. So just to keep that in mind, your composite score is important, but it's not as important as how those scores are distributed. Now, onto my score. So, like I said, I had 60 days to study, 60 days of dedicated study, no work, no school, no life, no social life, just MCAT. I want to share with you guys my reaction, so here it is. Yes! 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 Oh my god. Oh my god, 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 oh my god. So, as you can tell, I was very overwhelmed and excited. What I didn't know going into the exam was that you basically have a month before you even get your results. So in that time, I was just doubting myself. I was looking up stories on Reddit, I was looking up stories on YouTube, and it was just getting me honestly fearful of what my future was going to look like. But as you can tell, it went good. This was another reason why I wanted to make this video, right? Because there's a lot of really great success stories on YouTube, but it's amongst people who are kind of remarkably intelligent and just quick, and I'm not one of those people. It takes me a few tries to get it right, and my score is a good one, but it's not, it's not 515. It's nothing crazy. It's definitely attainable. So I hope that motivates you and pushes you to keep going, because it is possible, and it is possible to do it within 60 days. out, but my breakdown was a 128 in Chem Phys, a 127 in Cars, a 129 in Biochem, and a 127 in Psych Soc. So kind of like a general rundown. In that 60 days, I was taking an exam every week. And in the last 2 weeks, I was doubling up on exams, pretty much. I'll show you my schedule and kind of like my distribution of my scores. Essentially what I would do, that first week before, or first week or two before I actually took a practice exam, I was just doing content review. And so I mainly used two resources. I used Kaplan and AAMC. And all I can say is from my personal experience using Kaplan, I thought the content review was sufficient enough. And for me, I really need to read those in order to kind of imprint a lot of the information and use that in a lot of the questions. But their practice exams did not exactly mirror AAMC's or the actual MCAT. It did in certain ways, but it was just more content heavy. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that, some people might have issue with it because it's not exactly like the MCAT, but I think because it's more content heavy, it helps you prepare. So when you do actually take the real MCAT, it's easier for you to do that analysis. You'd be like, oh yeah, I remember this bicarbonate buffer system because I read it here and I did this practice problem. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I actually like that Kaplan MCAT exams. I use that, and I also use AAMC's materials, the section bank, the quiz bank, and their practice exams. And I generally saved a lot of that for the end. The three things I think that are most important to be successful in the exam, and that's to be organized, to be focused, and have a strong support system. So the organization really comes with practicing practice problems and practicing the practice exams. And the practice exams are crucial because it's going to help you develop your stamina. A 7.5 hour exam is so long. If you don't have practice with using 100% of your brain power for that amount of time, it's going to be really challenging for you come test day. And so that's how I had essentially organized my schedule. I had a practice exam every week, like on that Friday or Saturday, and on Saturday and Sunday I would pretty much take all of Saturday to review the exam. I would kind of study, if I didn't finish anything, I would kind of finish studying the exam on Sunday. If I had any questions, I would always follow up with any professors or my Kaplan course director at the time, and my mutual peers who were also studying to take the MCAT exam. And then Monday, Tuesday, I was either reviewing concepts that I was kind of rusty on that exam, or learning new things. So by come Friday, now that I'm learning new things, learning new concepts, whether it's acid bases or enzyme catalysis or something like that, I was prepped for what may be thrown at me in the next practice exam. So kind of that was how I approach things in general. And for me, I hate rigid structure. I kind of go day by day. But what I did is I kind of took an intake of all my resources, right? How many questions do I have in the Kaplan quiz banks? How many questions do I have in the section banks of AAMC? How many questions do I have in the quiz bank of AAMC? And I would count it out, and then I would divvy it. And especially in the last 3 weeks, because in the last 3 weeks it's when things kind of get hectic. You can really bump your score up at the end because you kind of had all that content review, and now it's just like, okay, I just need to learn how to answer these problems. For me, it helped me because I wasn't like, oh, I'm just going to do biochem questions until I get tired of it. I kind of had a little bit of like an idea, a schedule of what I was going to do, but I always went off. If I committed to doing 20 section bank questions of chemistry and physics on AAMC, and I only did like 15, I was totally fine with that. If I got tired of Chem Phys, but I knew I had to do it, I would just switch over to Biochem, because Biochem was something I was strong in and something I was confident in. And yes, it wasn't like I should have been devoting my time there, but it was more so that it gave me the confidence to keep going and return to Chem Phys. So I probably should kind of explain some of these words that I'm just throwing at you. So Kaplan has a few resources. they have their practice exams, and then they have their quiz banks. And their quiz banks can be like organized in just like passages, and then questions on that passage, or isolated questions, which pretty much mirrors the actual exam. That's what I really used with Kaplan, was the quiz banks and their practice exams. And their quiz bank questions, in my personal opinion, were really difficult. For AAMC, they have 3 different types of resources. They have their practice exams, they have their quiz banks, and they have their section banks. So your section banks are basically the passage and then the individual questions, and then your quiz banks are those isolated questions. And the quiz banks are more like just content. Do you know your content? You can be able to answer this question. So it was a nice review, but it was not much analysis. The section bank was a lot of analysis, and it was, I don't know how to explain it. It was really challenging. I saw, for me personally, the MCAT was like a mix between the section bank and the quiz bank. It was like a kind of like a perfect mix. It really reflected not so much the first practice exam of AAMC, but more so like the second or third. That's what I got from it. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, again, content is important. It's important for you to have that foundation because it helps you build that confidence and it helps you answer those questions. But ultimately, if you know how to analyze and use kind of your common sense to figure it out, you can really, really, really improve your score that way. Yeah, I kind of went into that's kind of an overview of what I did. Basically, when I would get an exam score, right, if I really had trouble in this one area, which is usually Chem Phys and usually cars, I would tackle Chem Phys and cars. I would not spend any attention to Biochem because more or less that fluctuated with content knowledge, and I knew that's something I could review and move past it. So I didn't really focus on that. And I was lucky enough to where in my academic year in the post-bac program, all I was doing was bio-center classes. I did advanced biochem, so that really helped me in that arena. And then for Chem Phys, it was just a lot of, relearning the concepts, reapplying them. And it was kind of challenging at first, but once you figure out, like, that you don't need to know how to necessarily calculate it, don't feel defeated if you don't really know the answer, if you don't really know how to approach it. Just think about, okay, I might not know this exact formula. I may not know exactly what this may mean. But what can I get from the passage? What information can I get from the passage to help me make the most educated guess? And oftentimes, you can guess the right answer. A week, I would go, I did horrible in cars. I need to really focus on my reading comprehension. And I wouldn't do that by just doing tons of cars passages. I would do that by focusing on comprehending every single passage in Chem Phys and Psych Soc. And this is what I can say. If you can do really good in cars, you can do decent in Psych Soc. Psych Soc is similar to cars in that it really has to do with reading comprehension, and I didn't study Psych Soc at all. I regret it because I feel like it was easy points that I could have gotten, but I just did not have the time, and I didn't have the motivation, and I was just overwhelmed with what I felt like I was struggling in with cars so much that Psych Soc was just never a priority for me. For cars, other advice that I would want to give that I didn't do is to get started on it way early. I only had 2 months, but I could have definitely been doing passages months ahead of time. And I should have been, because from different resources too, not just Kaplan, from Next Step, from Princeton Review, do different passages from different resources to help you just get familiarized with the different ways that they can present you information. Ultimately, for cars, I thought the AAMC practice cars passages were the best representation of the actual exam. But I would strongly recommend not to do those passages until you kind of primed yourself with different resources. Because once you do a passage, you can't do it again and expect that to reflect your actual testing ability, right? Because you have some insight on what the answer is because you had just done it. That's pretty much what I have to say about being organized, about my schedule. but also focus, right? You have to be motivated, you have to be driven, you have to be ready to take the MCAT. If you're not ready, do not take it just for the sake of taking it, because med schools can look on that and it can reflect negatively on your profile. Wait until your practice AAMC scores kind of reflect where you want to be, because ultimately what I found that the AAMC practice scores were the best indication of what my actual score was. Like the second most important thing, aside from like being focused and dedication, is having a strong support system. So I cannot stress to you enough, especially me personally, when I had a 60-day time period. So that means waking up at 8 a.m., going home and getting in bed at 8 p.m. And it's not that I was studying the whole time, because I would take massive long breaks. It's just that, you know, it's a long day. It's a long day of studying, and it can feel really redundant, and you can feel like, for me, I'm a very outdoorsy person. I love to do things. Just feel trapped and just frustrated and just kind of like antsy and anxious and all these feelings. You know, you need to have a strong support system to lean on. I was lucky enough that I had my academic counselor. So whenever I was feeling insecure about a specific score, she can give me insight in that. But also my family. I would call my family all the time. I'd call my mom all the time. Just tell her what I was feeling. Just to hear her voice, just to have some sense of normalcy. And my peers who were deciding to take the exam with me, I confided in them about my insecurities. Like, it's just a very mentally taxing time studying for the MCAT. It really is. And if you have any other responsibilities outside of it, like work or school, which is understandable, because for some people, they're not as fortunate enough to take like a couple months break just for a dedicated MCAT study. Just be mindful of that. You may need to study for a little longer. If nothing else, I hope this video shows you that you can definitely do it. I got my score from a 495 to a 511. Ultimately, you would get a score that reflects the amount of work you put into it. And MCAT is really challenging. You may not do the best the first time, but it's a learning experience. It's so challenging. This exam is so challenging and taxing. Sometimes you just need to, you know, recollect yourself, and try a different new strategy. And as long as medical school is what you want to do, it's what you're committed to, you will find a way to get there. So I hope this helped you. If you have any questions at all or want me to elaborate anything, please feel free to message me. I know I could not fit everything in one video. I just wanted to kind of share the most important lessons that I learned while taking the exam. Alrighty, good luck.